I'm going to, if you don't mind, just keep referring to this because this is where all the questions come in. So thank you to everyone who sent some questions in. But I do completely appreciate that a lot of people on the call, I'm sorry I'm not giving you eye contact, I'm just literally just trying to get people in here. A lot of people obviously don't know anything really about me or Right Revenue. But Right Revenue is a software solution. So we do revenue management in hotels. But this absolutely is not a sales pitch at all. We run these webinars every few weeks, and it's not always like this, but we always invite a guest to talk about a subject that's kind of really hot in the industry. But our ethos as a company is exactly that. So no sales pitch, it's bringing people together, educational, supporting each other. And really, especially at a time like this, we do feel that kind of support is what we all need. And as my mother would always say, a high tide lifts all boats. So as long as we're not sort of sharing anything commercial, then it's really good just to share knowledge and pass that around the industry. So I'm not going to talk any more. I'm going to read out a little bit about Julie and then let her introduce. And then literally we have got a pile of questions for Julie, which is great. So thanks for all of that. But the lovely Julie is founder and CEO of Criton, a guest engagement platform for the hospitality sector. So Criton allows independent hotels, service departments, and groups to create a guest app into which all of their guest-facing technology can be integrated, including booking, check-in, loyalty, mobile access, food and beverage as well. So Julie set up and was CEO of Lateral City, a luxury service department operator in Scotland, and then had the idea of Criton. And a bit like me, you started off doing something else, went into technology, and now you've grey hair and a drink problem. So Julie's vision for Criton is to give independent operators access to big chain technology, which is absolutely wonderful. And just a little funny, just before we get into the serious stuff, I actually worked out, because I'm very, very old, and I know you've got a lovely history behind you as well, that you're actually looking at half a century of experience sitting here talking, which is absolutely hilarious. So yeah, just a little funny.
Oh my God. Thank you. I'm just going to go now.
Yeah, sorry, but that's 40 years for me and 10 for you, Julie. So kind of just to kind of get on to the more serious stuff and to put a little bit of context around this, what I did this morning was I just picked 5 of our hotels within our portfolio, and I looked at, on the 22nd of May last year, what those 5 hotels had on the books for the month of May. Okay, so not what they ended up with in May, but what they had on the books for May. And out of those 5 hotels, they weren't all luxury, they weren't all sort of big high-end hotels, but those 5 hotels had £1,164,788 on the books on the 21st of April last year for the month of May. And when I looked at this May, they obviously had almost 0. So we go from hero to 0 very, very quickly. So I think that kind of just puts in context how the industry is sitting. But one of the questions that we had, Julie, for you was, we're adjusting obviously to a new normal, and there's been lots of articles written about what that might look like, and these include staggered opening. So that's very prevalent, especially here in Ireland. It looks like we're going to be legislated to a staggered opening of, say, 20%, then 40%, then 60% of our room stock. But just what's your insights to this new normal? What do you think this is all going to look like?
Well, I think I agree that it's likely that even if you felt like you could open at 100% occupancy on day dot, that's just not going to be the case. And I'll start by saying everything I say today is just my thoughts, because if anybody's telling you they know what's going to happen, yeah, you know, you've got to kind of make your own plans and think about what you know about your business to date and how you can translate it. But I think there's going to be two themes really that will make a difference. One is guests. So I think ultimately for the next few months, maybe years, guests will be concerned about their safety. So we used to talk about building trust and building experience, and some of us worked harder at that than others, but I think that's going to be a big deal now. And if you look at the chains and what's coming out on all of their social media feeds, it's all about trust, about safety, security, cleanliness. We are all going to have to figure out how we can communicate that, and not just communicate it once, but communicate it again and again across all of our channels all the time, until either Mr. COVID decides to go back to where he came from, or we have a vaccine. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing that's going to happen is people are going to get scrappy, right? And by that I mean there's going to be some business model blending. So in the sector before COVID arrived, we had co-working and serviced apartments starting to work together. We had hotels moving into co-working. We had co-workers like Zoku building apartments on their top floor. We had all sorts of different ways of working and living coming together. You know, like you look at new brands like Selena, and people think that work was already mobile, and so how they tried to meet that demand. And my view is that now people are going to get scrappy in business that they can take. So looking at what you can do locally, looking at how you can engage with your local community. So some hotels have done takeaways. Will you continue to do takeaways? What's your competition in that market? Understanding all the different potential revenue streams that you can have whilst you get back to the new normal. And I think the new normal for a while will be lower occupancy. So you're going to have to really look at your cost base to understand how you can, how and if, because let's face it, some people won't be able to, how you're going to make money.
I think that's really interesting, Julie. There's two things I really want to talk to you about on that. Just talking about that cost of occupied room. Honestly, it staggers me. I've been working in this industry for about 100 years now, and honestly, when I go into hotels as a consultant, as a revenue consultant, and ask them what their cost of occupied room is, I could count in all my years on one hand what that is. And actually, we've just developed and released this morning a piece of software to help hotels with that. But I think that's going to be key moving forward, understanding your costs. And the second thing is really, just to tell you a very quick story. My cousin actually is very senior in the RNIB, so the Charity for the Blind. And in Northern Ireland alone, they have 4 massive offices. And so they're paying a huge amount in rent. So they are all now obviously working very successfully at home. And what he has suggested, or what we were talking about when we spoke at the weekend, was how they keep their staff working at home, that they take all of these costs out of their business of these expensive offices. And I said to him, well, you know, looking at hotels, one of the ideas that we had considered for hotels was all of those companies that are going to be doing that, getting rid of those office costs because they are used to working at home, that maybe we should, as an industry, be looking at how we facilitate, like once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, all hands. So the RNIB, just take one of your meeting rooms once a month, the last Thursday of every month, from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock is RNIB, and that's booked every week. And I think that's an interesting concept, and I think, you know, hotels could really turn their business a little bit to facilitate people who are looking to stay working at home but still have that option of meeting. I'm going to go on because we had a good question actually from Laura. How confident do you think the domestic market will be within the UK after lockdown? And I suppose that goes back to, we all believe that the domestic market will be the first to come back. But do you agree with that? You know, and how will that work if you are a hotel, for example, in London or Blackpool or whatever, that maybe relies on you know, lovely events and tourist attractions to keep people occupied, and kids and family? What if they're not open? How do you think that's all going to work, Julie?
So I think this is where we can look at some of the stuff that's coming out of people like STR, right? And, you know, they're forecasting that domestic is going to come back first. So I think you can take what experts are saying, and STR is obviously a very good monitor because they've got what's happening in, you know, less so in China, but what's happening in Europe and all that sort of thing. So I think international travel is going to be difficult, nigh impossible for a while. People are not going to want to get in a plane because they might think they're more likely to catch it. Or you've got recession, people lost their jobs, so they might look for a short stay rather than for a holiday. And I think what hoteliers and accommodation providers will be doing is looking at the segments that were successful for them before and understanding their main streams of business, and then thinking which of those you might have to pivot. So the other thing STR is saying is that corporate business is likely to take time. International business won't recover until 2022, and we don't really know what's going to happen to corporate. But if you work with corporates and that's been your mainstay, then you really need to understand the corporates that are around you, because if a corporate asks someone to travel, they're going to be really tight on the security and the diligence they do about that. So if a corporate is close to you that you haven't worked with previously, are you getting in touch with them to say, look, they can walk to work, here's what we are doing around about security, can we get on your procurement list, what does that look like? But back to the question, I think domestic will be the stuff that comes back first, I believe, but I think you've got to look at, you know, your over 70s might not be able to travel for a while. You know, it looks like in France they're going to stop over 70s traveling until September. So what does that mean for the breakdown of where people came? What does that mean for your midweek business? Look back as far as you can go. I mean, you know, your system's amazing, Adrienne, and PMSs have a power of information in them, but as we all know, it's really hard to get it out. So turn your PMS upside down and shake it into systems like Right Revenue. And, you know, I'm going to shout out to Alan and Nigel here from Foresight, or whatever system you've got that allows you to actually look at the data and then analyze the hell out of it, because we never have time, and we've got some time. And like you, one of the first questions I ask every hotelier or accommodation provider I meet is, what level of repeat business have you got? And so often they can't tell me because their systems let them down. So now's the time to find out, because if you have whatever repeat business you've had, that's the people that are most likely to come back to you because they trust you already. You don't have to build the relationship, it's already there. And so I'd be really working hard on the people that have been before. It's so much easier to get business from people who already know you. And I think that will stand in good stead. So I think the other thing that's going to come into this is length of stay, because transient business will be down, right? And we've all really relied on OTAs for one-nighters, and we know that bookings were coming in later and later, and we knew they would come. We were confident that we would get that last-minute pickup, and I do think that's going to change. So you're probably going to look at length of stay as something that you want to drive, because not only is it good for getting them into the hotel for longer, but it means your costs are lower, right? You're not having to clean the room every night, change your sheets, all of that stuff is really good.
Yeah, actually, there's two questions here, and I think this one's really being covered. It's a question from David, and it literally, and I think you have covered most of this, but I just wanted to make sure David knew that the question was covered. Was, many industry experts are predicting corporates and tour business will be decimated into 2021. I have to say I agree, and even the CEO of Marriott has come out and said it's going to be 2022, and before they believe that their tour business is going to come back. And that next year, even if they do get tour business, they're expecting a 50% wash on that, which I think is really interesting. So what should you do if as a hotelier, if your business was heavily dependent on corporate or tours? Will your data help identify which markets and segments are working for you? I think we've covered most of that, but is there anything else you want to add on that, Julie?
I mean, only just that, you know, as we all know, tour business is complex, right? So I think what's going to happen over the next year is that we need to work at reducing the amount of complexity. So I'm going to give you an example here. I've heard a lot of people being really annoyed at the fact that we all started booking our flights separately from our hotel, separately from our transfer, and the complexity of getting all of that pushed back or refunded has been really hard. So I think people will look for simplicity. So if you can add simplicity and reduce complexity in any of that business that you've previously had. So if you say to a group operator, I know it's hard, but we will make this as simple as possible for you, then maybe you'll see some of that business come back sooner than others. Whereas if you're very inflexible, and you know, as someone who used to run an apartment business, I know that cancellation rates and flexibility is a hard thing, but I do think that it will stand over time, and it plays into the trust piece, right? That they can trust you to do right by them.
Actually, that's a really good point. It's one of the questions I was going to get to later on, was about the flexibility around rates. As you know, Julie, we host a WhatsApp group of hoteliers, and we've got about 130, I think, hoteliers in that. And there's been a little bit of chat in the last couple of weeks about you know, flexible cancellation policies. And you know, hotels were very good at saying, look, if you book now, you know, we'll let you cancel, no charge, whatever. But when do you stop that? You know, we have hotels talking about, you know, do we keep that in June, July, August?
Your books will tell you, but my view is it's going to be a while, realistically, because it's going to take time to recover. Because even if Mr. COVID goes away, we're going to have to deal with the fact that we're going to be in recession, right? So the bounce back, whatever it looks like, it's unlikely that GDP returns immediately and everything goes back to normal. So I think if you've been around for a long time, looking at how long it took you in 2008-9 to get back to where you turned off your flexible rates would probably give you a very good idea. And I'm sure people who've been around in the industry for a long time, if you haven't been around that long, would be prepared to share their experience of that, because there are a lot of people who've been in the industry for a long time and you know, like, are dusting off their strategy for when 9/11 happened, for the 2008-9 downturn, you know, because they've been there before and they understand what this is like, even though it's a new thing.
Yeah,
it's a bit worrying all around, actually, that the fact that it could carry on, you know, to have some restrictions in place maybe, but you know, it just seems all too extreme. And how, you know, my daughter's a frontline medic, and I just worry about that the figures that people would normally have illnesses and die from, are they separate to what's going on now? And you know, it just seems, I don't know how to take this and how to put this without being unsympathetic. But I think as an industry, you know, we have to be more positive and try and carry on relatively as much as possible normally, and without infringing people's fear of catching something. So
I'm a big fan of that, Sue, but also I think, you know, if we write a strategy and we, a couple of months from now, we put it in the drawer and we don't have to, that's amazing. But if you don't have a plan B, plan B happens, you will regret it, because planning what may happen, and also, like I said, turning your PMS upside down and getting the data out of it, we never get time to do that. And we can actually do some proper analysis, or get people who like doing analysis, because a lot of us are front of house hospitality providers who don't really so get somebody who's like turned on by that, and then sit down and go, do I really understand my business? Because I bet you there's some stuff in there that you go, God, I didn't know that people who stay longer spend less money, or people who stay longer spend more, or people who come from
Yeah.
South Scotland spend more, or vice versa, and that can really drive your marketing strategies even if things go back to normal.
Mm.
That's great, Julie. We've got a lot more people joining, and just to say, if you have any questions, would you just pop them in the little question box there, and I'll put them to Julie for you. That would be great. But there's one question here, and this is a massive passion of mine, Julie, and if anybody knows me or reads the stuff that I put out or listens to me talking, one of the large bugbears that I have is the power of the OTAs. And that's actually kind of contradictory because my background was in travel, but how Booking.com, Expedia, and whatever have controlled our industry. Personally, I think it's one of the biggest threats that we have. Now, this is going to be a long-winded lead up to the question, but obviously we heard that Booking.com last week was in trouble, and they had gone to the Dutch government to ask for sort of 15 million to help bail them out. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on the OTAs, because, my ideal is that just what you were saying there, that this is the right time to stand back, look at your business, analyze what you're doing and how you're doing it, and actually, go back and look. Well, I always say to hotels, I'll give you £1 million if you can find me your Booking.com contract, because none of them ever can. But go back and look at how you're actually contracted with those OTAs and how you've been managing and what they've actually controlled. And it's not even just down to the commission, but it's when did you over forecast or under forecast because of how the OTAs behaved and the cancellation policies. But, is this a time where we actually get to realign and go, do you know what, guys, we're in trouble as an industry, but you're also in trouble as well. And I was on a webinar last week where one of the girls said that actually in the hotel industry in the area that she was in, it was quite rural in Ireland, that all of those hotels had come together as a group, gone to Booking.com and said, no, we're not paying for this, we're not paying for that, and we're not doing this. And then Booking.com had absolutely no choice because they were the sort of 6 or 7 hotels in that particular area. And they took the power back and said, this is how we want to behave. And I suppose if I was to paint this rainbow of how I'd like us all to come out of that, this situation would be with a little bit of power on the OTAs. Yeah. And I'm talking, I'm not actually asking you a question. But so my question, I suppose, Julie, is, do you think as an industry we will take this time, or do you think it will be, oh dear God, we just need to get rooms online and we're just going to go back to the way we were and just sell our souls back out there again? Do you have a thought on that? Your crystal ball?
God, honestly, what I really hope and what I say to folk all the time is that the OTAs are a channel, and we've stopped treating them like that because we've become lazy. Lazy isn't the right word. It was easy, it was like we're like a baby bird and mum comes up and shoves food at us, and we know the pickup will come and we know they'll advertise, and if you don't understand your cost of acquisition from a direct perspective and everything else, then they get a lot of grief, but actually they are a cost efficient way to acquire customers, but only the first time. You must not pay commission on the same guest again and again and again. And this is where I think the industry's turned on its head and still not got it right. You've got to use them as a channel, but then get the customer to book direct the next time. And I would love to say to Adrienne that I think we will change our relationship with them, but they are so big, and the internet is much easier for them than it is for smaller people. So I fear that we will talk a good game, but if they don't change their morals, in some situations they've invoked force majeure in the contract. Yeah. We all know that there's been some underhand dealings in the way that they've dealt with us as hoteliers. So if they are change their ethics, then I think, but I fear for that.
We have a lovely comment here actually from our mutual friend Alan.
Yes.
He's very clear. Expedia along with Booking.com have had to look at private equity investment. Now, understanding that you know, that maybe that power that they had might be a little bit shaky. And yes, as Ken rightly says here, a good friend of mine, Ken from the lovely Salty Dog, we do need to pay OTAs for that reach. Of course we do, and they do market our hotel globally. And I don't think anyone actually minds paying them commission for that first time booking. I think what my big bugbear is that we shouldn't necessarily pay the same commission if that customer comes back a second time, because they did not come back because they liked the experience on Booking.
Agree with all that.
They liked the experience because they loved our hotel. And wouldn't it be great if we could either have some agreement on lesser commission for second time around bookings, or that
sounds good.
Bidding on our name, or they're not going to be undercutting us. I think some of those things we potentially as an industry have the power to change. I'm just and Alan rightly says here, and I completely agree.
I think I completely agree. Thumbs up to that one.
I think Alan's right. Just watch out for Google filling the gap if the OTA. The other thing, sorry, Julie, go ahead. Sorry.
The trouble with that is that if there is a gap, someone will fill it, and the internet has meant that it needs to be easy for people to search, and they commoditized us by making it a price filter, right? So it's like the guest only cares about price. So it's actually, we all know that's not the case, right? We know against our competitors choose on more than just price, but the OTAs are focused on that, you know, get the best price here. And, you know, in the early days, we did give them a better price than on our own website. We've all sorted that out now. I think there's still a gap between acquisition of a customer through a channel and how you acquire them as a customer ongoing if they're going to come back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and you know,
agree as well.
This is saying there that a coordinated industry petition to reduce commission, but we need to again get our industry bodies involved in that, which would be great. Julie, I'd like to go back to something that I know is very close to your heart, because I'm going to keep talking about OTAs if I don't shut up. Do you feel that guests, this is a question that actually my lovely friend Diana gave a slant to. Do you feel that guests will want less touch points when they go through the check-in process, and even less touch points through their entire stay? And it leads on to something Diana has asked, and that is, you know, do you think an app, something, you know, I know that you're very keen not to do that kind of sales pitch here, of course, but your product is fantastic with taking some of those touch points out. Do you think people are going to download an app? Do you think an app is a good idea, and trying to remove some of those touch points through check-in, through key cards and all of that is going to be important?
So I think the first part of that question was, do we think the guests are going to want less touch points? And I think that's inevitable, because ultimately there's been a huge public service campaign to educate everybody across the world how you pick up germs. So all of a sudden, when I'm out on my walk, I look at a gate as not something to let me through, but something that might have a germ on it. And that's just one example. You know, if you feel like getting on a bus, a train, the tube, going into a supermarket, we're now trained to think about how we collect germs, and then we all know that we now touch our face more times than we even thought was possible in 1 minute. So I would say the reduction of touch points is something that will happen irrespective of what you do with your in-room collateral or your room. Your guests just aren't going to touch it. So they're not going to touch your menus, they're not going to touch your guest information book, they're probably not going to touch the tea tray, the kettle, because they understand that your team could be asymptomatic and not know they're sick, and they could be spreading the bug. So I think how you communicate with your guests, if they're not going to touch what's in the room, is a problem that you have to solve. And of course, an app is an easy way to do that because it's on their phone. Now, one of the questions that I think it was Diana sent, was it Diana that sent it about, you know, why should it be an app? And the answer to that is, well, quite simply, if you want to do digital key, it needs to be a native app, because that's the only way that our systems work. Bluetooth and native app together allows a guest to open a door securely. So that's one of the leading reasons. But also it's about so much more than that, because how else do you get lots of different systems in the one place for a guest to engage with? Because there is a plethora of guest-facing tools out there. You know, literally before COVID, we had a new tool to message, loyalty, check-in online, create, you know, ID, but each of them is a separate interface. And from my perspective, how are you going to tell your guests to work across 6 different interfaces to interact with your hotel? And so that's why I started Criton, was to just put it all in one place. But there's also the engagement with a hotel brand. So it will only work if you and your team believe there's something in it for the guest, and that you're proud of it and you engage with it and you're updating it and you see it as a means of communication rather than just a utility. So if you look at kiosks in a hotel right now, you know, why are kiosks there? Kiosks are not there for a guest. Kiosks are there for a hotel to reduce the amount of manpower they have to put into reception, because you still have to queue. And one of the main reasons that guests complain is they don't want to queue. And that was before we were scared to stand next to someone we didn't know because they might give us a horrible disease. So I think the throughput of your guest into your hotel quickly through common areas and to their room is something that a lot of guests are now going to be very concerned about, and speeding it up in any way you can, getting information to them, that I think will be something that guests will feel that you've worked hard at and have really considered their safety in how you go about it, and that comes back to building trust. So I hardly ever think about apps. I think about, how do you help your guest? How do you give your guests what they want? And then if right now it's an app, then you just tell them why you've done it. So you're going to be sustainable. You're not going to have to touch everything. You have everything you need on your phone, and you can go quickly to your room and enjoy our hospitality the way that you want to.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm just going to have a look here, and obviously Sue's right, you know, that's difficult for small B&Bs. You know, large hotels having remote door check-in, etc. is possible. So yeah, you have to do what's right for you and suits your market. And Nikki's just said, meeting and events business, when are we thinking that this will, when will we thinking this will return, given some of the large numbers of people in close contact, theatre style, etc. Yeah, this will be an impact for hotels that rely on that sort of C&E or M&E business.
I think that's absolutely right. I think MICE is going to take time to recover. And I think the unfortunate thing about tools like this is we've got, I don't know how many people we've got on, but you know, this would have been a seminar last year. We would have invited people to come somewhere. We might have run 2 or 3 across the country. People would have spent, you know, a couple of hours traveling, half an hour beforehand. We would have had a cup of tea, or in the evening we'd have had a glass of wine. You know, it would have been a whole day of you and I's time. And most people's, yeah, exactly, I've got my tea. And now we can do it like this. So, you know, and if you look at event organisers, they've already jumped on the bandwagon. And there was that Hospitality Tomorrow conference a couple of weeks ago. It was like 3,000 people online. And that is a huge step change that I think we will see some people wanting to network face-to-face. You can't replace the benefits that you get from face-to-face. I think you can do a lot more online. And so, again, if it's a big segment for you, what's your plan B to replace it? Yeah. How are you working to make sure that the gap that business has left for however long is full?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think communicating with guests is going to be key, and I think this ties in. We've got the lovely Steve Risk here saying, need to recognise guests through communication. Thank you for the business. And it's all about that book direct as well. And you know, Trish rightly says, you know, our guests have been caught in that booking, and don't want to go back to booking.com because I will stay here for hours, but that booking.com will, you know, that it is easy for them. But, you know, maybe this is a time to realign how we are communicating with our guests, and trying to bring them to a book direct, and what does that mean for our marketing message? When do we start our pay-per-click campaigns again? You know, who are we targeting? Why are we targeting them? Is that the right message that we're getting out there? And how do we get those people back? But one of the other questions I have been asked, let me just go back to that, is it's about loyalty. So how important, this was something that was put to me, sorry, I've forgotten, I didn't write down who, apologies. Is it important? How important is it how we communicate with our guests, and does loyalty actually matter? Do you think that's going to be more important or less important as we move forward, Julie?
So I think communication is going to be key for a long time, and I've said it already, we need to build trust. We've talked for such a long time about the experience the guests can have when they come and stay with us. Before they get to the experiential bit, they're going to want safety, security and trust. So you're going to have to build that into your messaging, and you know, I'm not a marketing expert, so there's loads of people that can help you do that. I think loyalty, you know, so I talked about it's so much easier to get people who know you and trust you already to come back. But again, this comes down to your segments. So corporates, we know, love points because it benefits them personally from business travel, and that's where Marriott and Hilton win big, because they've got these big loyalty programs like Steve Inspire Loyalty allows an independent hotel to do that. And if you're moving your strategy to increase your repeat business, then giving them points or recognizing them, you know, however route we go, I think will be really, really important. And I think recognition is just as important as loyalty, because I mean, honestly, I've stayed in hotels every week until this for like 20 years. And I would go to a hotel in London pretty much every week, and some receptionists would recognise me and some wouldn't. And it's that we train them with a standard operating procedure to say, are you checking in? No, I just carry my suitcase around for fun. Of course I'm checking in. I'm standing at your bloody reception desk and I'm flipping raging. So, you know, it's about that. That's one of my rant points, Adrienne, is just the questions that we get asked. So how do we make sure that we can recognise our guests? And that, I think, is where tools can really help you, because understanding who's coming back, why they're coming back again and again and again, you know, giving them benefits that are pretty low value to you but deemed to be high value to them, all of that stuff will play in. And you know, anyone who's gone on to the Expedia program, I can't remember what it's called now, where you're deemed to be, you know, special, and you have to give your guests like bottled water or an upgrade if it's available, all that sort of stuff. Don't just do that for Expedia. Don't sign up to Expedias. Do that for your own guests. You know, we spend so much time bending over backwards for the OTAs. Do it for your guests. Do it for the people who book direct, and pretty soon they'll book direct again because they know that you will recognise them. But have a system that allows you to recognise them, or you will disappoint them and they will lose trust, and then all that work you've done will be lost.
Okay, I know we'd said, Julie, that we do about 45 minutes or so. I just kind of wanted to wrap up, because there's maybe a few questions hanging off a few of these. I think you started by saying that clean and hygiene is going to be a huge marketing tool for us, and I think we have to be prepared for that, and we have to be active in that now. And I know that I'm speaking to some hotels personally that are looking at you know, maybe taking half their seats out of the restaurants, or that, you know, hotels that have spas and wet areas, they might have a longer tail opening because people may not want to be in those areas. We don't know, and that's the thing. We might all be rushing back to get a massage after this. I'm certainly going to get my hair done after this, but anyway. But I think, you know, having those conversations of how are you going to serve guests without close contact, and even behind scenes, how are you going to make sure that your staff in your kitchens and all of that are safe. So I think there's huge considerations for us, but I think that clean and healthy message is going to be strong. I think it's a really good point, and there's been a little bit of chat in it, which is great to see, about the whole potentially offering meeting rooms to people who are happy working at home and want to come together. And, you know, Ken, and I think Trish, it might have been, and Sophie said, we're absolutely perfectly placed because we've got the catering on hand, we've got the AV, you know, this is our business, we know how to do this better than any co-working space. So I think that's probably something that we should be having looked at. Maybe, and let's hope we can all rally together. Now is the time to reevaluate the OTAs and how we do that moving forward. And actually, we do probably need to plan for a for a phased opening. Ken's just said massage is the first place I'm going. Ken, I know you. That's a vivid thought you've put in my head that's going to carry me for the rest of the day. Thank you so much. But yes, we do maybe have to plan for a staged opening. But I think also getting a really strong book direct message, and just a couple of tips if I could maybe share with you, just having done this for a while in hotels. Your book direct doesn't always have to be about a discounted rate. It doesn't have to be yes, you can have rate parity, yes, we can undercut the OTAs, we should be doing that now, we should have always the best rates on our website, but it's always great to offer exactly what you said, you know, complimentary water, a cocktail on arrival, or a late checkout. What can you do if your resort? Is it free bike hire? What is it? Picnic, to go out and experience the forest where you are? What is it that you can give your guests? And you don't put that on an OTA, and you give that very upfront to your guests. And another thing that has worked very well for some of the hotels that we work with is show them that you're ethical. So for every booking that comes in direct, you donate £1 to a charity. God almighty, you know, if Captain Tom can donate, you know, 27 million or whatever to the NHS, what can we be doing as an industry to try and entice that booking? People are ethical. People want to know that you have an ethical policy.
I think sustainability is going to be even bigger now, because we all will have evidence of what us all stopping does to our planet. So the governments are going to have evidence-based, I think, to legislate around about this. So I think hotels will need to embrace their sustainability policies and actually properly do something about it and communicate it. You know, so reprinting things, your laundry, your amenities, all of that sort of thing, you're going to take them all out of your room. So are you putting them back in, or are you looking at something else, some other way to deliver them that is more sustainable, and then making sure that you tell your guests about it?
Absolutely. We no longer want to touch the sticky TV controls and the horrible matted guest guide. So no, that's absolutely great. Maybe if I could finish by saying a couple of things. One, we'd love to do this again, and I hope that you all got something out of it. And if you're all happy with it, we've got your email address. We'll just keep you updated with any other webinars like this that we're doing, and we have some fantastic experts on here as well that I wouldn't mind sort of leaning on. So you know who you are, Benjamin. I will lean on you at some point for another Ask the Expert, and Nigel, you're not getting out of it either. But what I was just going to say was, we'll keep you up to date with these. We will run them again. But Julie, we've certainly gone out to the market this morning to closed user group. We're not putting this out to everybody, but we're doing 2 offers at the moment. We're doing anyone who wants to take our revenue system, we're giving it away free for 3 months. And we're also giving a bespoke suite of reports that you don't need integration to your property management system, that will help you understand your cost of sale of room, will understand your profitability on rates, and a group displacement module. And we're giving that to a closed user group for just £59 a month. So if anyone is interested in that, please just ping me an email. As I say, it's not a sales pitch. We just wanted to say that we've realigned our product to try and help hotels on the way out and decide what they would be looking for. And so that offer is there for you guys who joined today. But Julie, you also have been very kind to give everyone today an offer. I'm just going to let you say that.
Yeah, so we think, I mean, we fundamentally believe that you need to remove all your in-room collateral, and so this is an ideal point not to reprint it, because if you reprint it, it's going to be out of date when things start reopening. So we're giving anyone an access to a free digital guest book until the end of the year, and there is no cost apart from you must have an Apple developer account, which costs £79 a year, and we'll get you up and running and give you the basis for communicating digitally with your guests, and then you're into the Criton platform, which is fully scalable depending on what you want to do.
Julie, just very, very quickly, just so there's some feedback here. Just thanks, Adrienne and Julie. Great information, excellent webinar. Definitely like to join again. And the lovely Diana, thank you very, very much. Much more helpful than some of the other webinars. Thanks, Diana, you rock. And Steve, looking good. Woohoo, Steve, put the lippy on for you. So great feedback from everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We will keep you posted. Julie, you are the god of everything. I completely take my hat off to you. Such an expert in this industry, and it's been an absolute gift and privilege to chat with you today. So thank you so much. And Eunice, if you want to send me your offer, I'll make sure everyone gets it as well. So thank you for that. And it's been lovely to have you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Adrienne. Nice to see everybody. Stay safe.
Take care. Stay safe. Bye. Bye.